One day I was wandering around on the internet and then suddenly a lot of imagery of a given scene came to my mind. Then I started running from the house because I couldn't find paper so I could draw, and at the same time I wanted to see everything at once. Then the brilliant idea came to my mind. Stickers. And I quickly went and drew everything that was going through my head. Even the dialogue. That was a Thursday, I think, or something like that. On Sunday, after watching a lot of Game Maker's Toolkit and Ryan Lunley's, I think, the channel. Shout out to those guys, thank you. It came to my mind, I need to make a platformer. Since there's a lack of 2D platformers on the market, I have lots of assets of unreleased projects or studies that became kind of projects that never saw the light of day, and I could use like it for a base and make it something, I hope, that didn't take a lot of time to make it, and I thought it would be a cool idea if I shared on YouTube the progress since day one, okay? And I'm still testing how I could better do this. I'm testing how I could position the microphone and stuff. Pretty shit right now, yeah, and I'm literally holding it with my hand, so every time I take a take, it sounds sort of different. I need a fixed position or a stand or something. One thing that I'm trying is to record as I produce to see if this speeds up my progress or my process overall, okay? I need to stop saying okay. Well, with that, I went out and started writing everything that I thought it would be really helpful while I was developing it in Unreal, and I could really focus on getting the core of the gameplay done and juicy. 1 week later, I wanted to start in a cool way, so I got the time to make an icon, an editor, launch screen, and the logo visual identity. I wanted the logo to have magical aspects, and I was testing with trails. It's been 1 week since I've done anything in the project. I ended up doing everything the next Saturday, and I wanted to appropriate from a simple form. I ended up choosing the star as the main icon for the game. When it was time to choose the colors in which I would use on the logo, it was pretty straightforward. I want something magical, and generally gold is used as ornaments, so I went with that. Used a cool background that ended up matching perfectly with the mood. I went with outlines and a black filling with a tiny white outline around the graphics to give an extra pop. I was trying to get something different happening on the star because I was thinking that it was really bland as an icon. So this was the final logo with a solid background and a thick black outline. Ended up doing the icon and another variation of the logo without the black outline based on the elements that were previously done. It was time to finally create the Unreal project. To do that, I just fired up Unreal 427 and start filling up the project description, and I ended up finding the place where I could insert the editor splash screen, and I did kindly so. I ended up loving the color scheme, so I made a copy and did one for the editor and one for the game. Pretty cool, right? The next step was to fire up an itch.io and create a page for the game. I started sketching up some text to see how we would conform to the page layout, and did the missing graphics required in the metadata of each. I have also done some updates to the GDD when new ideas came up. I can't wait to implement it. Another week later, with everything set up, I went with 427 and started making file structure for the project. Since 427 was the latest stable version, a few seconds have passed and I couldn't help myself, and then I converted the project to Unreal Engine 5 to see how it would perform. And as expected of an open beta, it was performing really bad. I went out deactivating every single plugin that I didn't need and trying to set up the scene for my 2D side-scroller game. Yeah, it crashed pretty bad, and yeah, I decided to get rid of every single possibility of me getting on board of UE5 until it is ready for production. So it's been 1 month and I got a nice injury while riding my skate, but gave me plenty of time to make the game. Of course I did not, and I haven't edited it ever since. Well, back in before I started setting up the settings and the base inputs, and basically hooking up the nodes to get my character to walk around. The great biggest next step was to set up a project to make easier to do animations for everything. I exported a sample with all the pieces merged together, and with that in place I could start implementing the sprite in Unreal Engine. And with the sprites in place I started getting the atmosphere and every single post-processing right to get the mood and yeah, stuff. But man, things could not be simple, right? I was like, hell yeah, everyone is using ASSprite, maybe it is good. I was like, I'm gonna buy it. Then I realized, hey, I don't need to buy it. I can compile it. So that's what I did. I downloaded everything from GitHub, every single dependency, and I compiled it. And yeah, it sucks, I didn't like it. So I turned back to Photoshop. See, that's how it should be. I didn't buy it. No trouble with customer service and no money lost. Only my time, my precious time was lost. But okay, that's part of life. With that out of the way, I went and continued extending the lore and the mechanics with things that came up to my mind. Messed up some settings, got some shaders to compile, fun stuff. Decided the defaults for post-processing exposure and lighting, changed paper to D, import defaults to make my life easier. So, went back to Photoshop and started making some pixel art, because we need a character with nice animations, right? And I was like, how can I get the character to go from nothing to something? So I gave him some shitty underwear, and later on I make the most buffed mage costume possible that are called Star Master set. Since I want for you to be able to equip the armor pieces in-game and have it show on the character, I need to draw each piece in its own layer and export it with its own export, and then I need to reassemble it on Unreal and make all the logic for it to work the way I intend. That will be true for every single armor that will be in the game, so maybe I'll not make so much armor since the process is really. With that out of the way, I got the characters that I drew into a new document and started sketching the terrain for me to get a base tile set to work with and start making some progress on the Unreal Engine side. And as if with every single serious game project, we need to set up a repository on a source control, okay? I set it up the repo and made my first commit. I don't know exactly what I did, but here is a bunch of extra footage for you. And that's it about Git. At some point I decided to see how I could get a step motion on the material editor. With everything out good, I went and imported the tile map that I just did on Photoshop and started fixing some problems. Further, I changed the map from the blocky one to this one with the tile set. With all this, I felt inspired and started tweaking a bit the jump of the character to it feel just right. With all that said, I went back to Photoshop and started sketching out the hub. In the hub is where you'll get once you're dead, and you need to talk to the NPCs. I need to host every single NPC that you need there, because it will help you to increase your... Well, I'm planning to have some roguelite elements of dungeon progression. I got some time to watch some GDC content and sketch out how I imagine the progression of the game, or the flow, you must say. After making it clearer to me of what I should expect of my game, I went back to Photoshop, and since the procrastination was going really well, I need to stop and get back to work, Okay, and with that, I decided that I should finish the hub first and implement it in Unreal. And since I'm planning to use everything Unreal has to offer me, I'm making the assets considering that it's daytime, so I can use the lights to make it look like night or evening or dusk and etc. And I got to admit, at this point I started to like where I'm going with this. Unintended behaviors are always nice to see, and this one happened when I was making the turn of the character, and I was able to fix it by just setting the rotation to world on the spring armor. In some sketches I made what it seems to be the necromant boss of this whole dungeon, and at this point I was pretty tired, so I procrastinated by watching some episodes of Eric Andre's show. After my health was recovered, I started importing from Photoshop the background of the hub. I wanted for it to catch lots of lights, so I split it up, the building into lots of layers, so I could get, with that, the engine to cast shadows for me and make lots of cool variations. I started testing out with atlases for Paper 2D. That way I could streamline the importing process and make sure that I get to the end result faster. With all the animations in place, it was time for me to start programming the animation state machine. And that was pretty quick. So, to resume, what have I done since the day I started this project? I decided to start a 2D project. I have used stickers, I have used old assets as a base, I learned the production workflow, started to write the mechanics and soft lore, created the Ultimage logo and icons, created the project in UE 427 and set everything up, created the itch.io page that is still in draft, converted the project to UE5 and gave up until it is stable, got a nice injury while skating, made the character walk, created and exported the character, compiled a sprite and well, did not use it, set it up defaults to make importing easy, created 2 principal sets for the character to wear, created the initial tile set, set it up GitHub as my search control, finished up the hub, watched some GDC, sketched out the game progression, set it up the game illumination, sketched the necromant boss, watched some Eric Andre show, and programmed the animation state machine. And believe it or not, that's a lot. For me, well, I'm working 5 minutes a day at least. I have 30 minutes being something normal. Sometimes I do 1 hour, 2 hours. That's really low. Some days I don't even work because I have the other stuff to do, my day job. So I want to see how far I can get. I hope that I release this game within a year. I plan to record these devlogs, and every time it reaches like 10 minutes of content, the same way that I'm editing this right now, I'm planning on releasing it. And that's it, folks. That was the devlog 00 for Ultimage and the Finite Dungeon. Hell yeah. See you soon, guys. Cheers. Yeah!